Hello IED students. I'm going to show you in this video how we can take the parts that you've created out of the blocks, and you will only have 6, I have all 9 here, but how we can take those parts and start to put them into what's called an assembly. If you look down here, I've got a couple assembly tabs opened up, and we can take them and place them together so we don't build this entire part anymore. We just take the previous blocks that we've created and tell OnShape how we want to fasten them together, basically. So I'm going to kind of go through how we set that up. I'm going to drag this over here so it's a little bit more out of the way for us. And here we go. In order to do that, OnShape has your part studio here. This is where you have all of the different parts, and you should have them named. But what I want to do is I want to create an assembly down here. So I have a couple I've already made. Here's a preview of that one. Here's another one I did where I put several parts together. And in order to do that, to create a new assembly tab, I'm just going to click down here on the plus and create an assembly. And so I've got a blank here now called Assembly 3. And what I view this as, this is kind of like just your tabletop. And what we need to do is we need to put a few of our parts out on the tabletop so we can start to kind of play with them together and put them together. So on OnShape, in order to do that, you're going to use the Insert command up here. So I'm going to click on Insert, and by default, it will bring up all of the parts that are in this file in the Part Studio here. If you wanted to use other parts that were from another document, we could click here and navigate to another document in some folders you have. But I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to click on one at a time. I'll take the bridge block, so I click on it, and it puts a part over here. I'm just going to click once, and it places it there. I might get this large triangular prism, click it, bring it over here and click, and I think we're supposed to have a triangle, and then and a tall rectangular prism. Maybe I'll put that in there. Okay, so these are my parts. Now, the beauty of this with an assembly is if I wanted to, I can actually add multiple copies of this. I don't have to recreate each one. I can just keep adding more and more copies, just like you're adding more blocks to your desktop. Now, for our project, we're only going to do 3. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, but I am going to go in and I'm just going to delete out those 2. So I'm just clicking on them and hitting delete. And so now here's the blocks that I want to put together. They will all drag around. So if you click on them, you'll see they will drag, and they all will move around. Right now, they're what we call completely unconstrained. I can move them in any way that I want to. But I am going to picture this. I'm going to picture this bridge part as being kind of like the base, and I'm going to build around it. So one thing we want to do is I want to do what OnShape calls fixing that part. And fixing it means you're going to make it almost like it's glued down to the desktop. It will not move ever once we fix it. So to do that, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to right click on bridge block, and I'm going to choose fix. And what we'll notice is it puts a new little icon here, and if I click on it over here, I can no longer drag it around. So that part is fixed. That's going to be what I'm going to build the other parts onto. So here's how we're going to do it. I am basically going to try to recreate this assembly. So I'm going to put the green triangular prism sitting right on top of that. And in order to do that, OnShape uses what are called mates. And most of what we're going to use is this mate right here called a fastened mate. There are other types of mates that will allow you to place parts together and still perform some motions like revolving or sliding. There's a cylindrical mate, there's a tangent mate somewhere over here, there it is. But I want to just try and place this triangular prism on top of this. Here's how it works. We're going to pick the fasten mate, and what I want to picture is I want to basically tell OnShape that the underside of this has to sit and match up to the top side of this. So you'll notice when I kind of hover over that, I get all these little white dots, and as I move around from them, you get that little yellow circle. And the white dots are all the different points you can connect things with. I'm going to try and just mate the very center of this to the very center on the bottom over here. So I'm going to click on this right here. But I could tell it any of these other white dots. But I'm going to click on this one. So click once, and it shows over here. Now what I've got to do is I've got to click on the bottom side of that triangular prism, so I'm slowly turning it so I can see it. And again, I get all these options, these different mate connector points. I'm going to click this middle one again. Once I click it, I'm going to turn this back down so we can see it. And it looks like it's sitting right where I need it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check and say I'm done. OnShape always tries to start a new mate here, so it has the second mate here going. I'm just going to close that out. We've done one mate over here, fastened mate number 1. And the way you check to see if you've done it correctly is I should be able to kind of grab onto this, click and hold, and if I can drag it out of position, then I didn't do it right. Now this one is not moving anywhere. That's exactly what you want. Now, how are we going to get this tall rectangular prism? I want to match it up over on this side over here. I'm just going to drag it into position over here. And I want it to want this face of it to kind of butt up over here against this side of the green triangle and the red bridge. If I was to try and do the fasten mate here just by using the very middle of this tall rectangular prism, I'm not sure that that very middle will necessarily match up with the very middle of the green triangle. It certainly is not going to match up with the very middle of this. I mean, if I do that, watch what happens. If I click on that, I guess I needed to click twice. 1 second. Get back to it. Okay, click once there. Click once here. And it looks like it's going to be too low. I'm going to close that out. And I'm just going to try and do this. Here's one thing I know for sure. I want those bottoms to be right in line with each other. See this, how they're almost sitting both on your desktop, if you picture that on your tabletop? So I'm going to do this. Here's what I know for sure. What I can do is I can click this bottom connector point right in the center. So I'm going to click that, and that has to match up with this bottom connector point. So I'm going to click over to here. Trying to click here. Come on. There it went, finally. Okay, now I'm glad that you get to see that this didn't work exactly as we hoped for. Those 2 points I clicked on, they are connected, but instead of this blue triangular prism being kind of on the outside, it's sort of going into the inside of this red bridge, and it's not even standing in the right direction. So sometimes what you have to do is in your mate over here, you have to use this little arrow that says flip the primary axis. Watch what happens if I click that. That does flip it to the outside, so that's good, but it's still not turned in the correct direction. So I'm going to use this next option called reorient the secondary axis. Click there, and it did flip it correctly in the right position. So now I'm going to hit check and say I'm done. And I'm going to just right-click in the blank space, show me an isometric view, and now I'm going to do that drag test. I'm going to see if I can drag these things around. Looks like they're all kind of fastened correctly, so that's a complete assembly now. So I do have that in position. Let me show you another option that you can do. I'm going to insert another part, and I'm going to go grab that small little triangular prism. So I'm going to get this one and just bring it out here. So I know our project says only to connect 3 of them, but I'm going to show you if I wanted to keep going. Imagine this. I want to put this little triangular prism sort of right in the front here. So I want to connect it right on there. So I'm going to use my fasten mate again, and I'm going to go right to this center point. So I'm going to click there, and it does show up here that it took it. And now I'm going to turn this around so I want to put this square side, that back side has to connect. So I'm going to click there. And I can see it moved it, but I'm going to turn around so we can see it. Okay, now it looks like it's in position pretty nicely. I'm going to go ahead and click check and say done. And go back to an isometric view, and that is in position there. I'm going to close that out, and it won't drag out, but I do want you to see some of the options that you have. I could go back to this fasten mate. This is the last one with that purple triangle prism. And if I open this back up, I do want you to see, watch what would happen now if I use some of these arrows here. If I click this one, it starts turning. It starts turning that triangular prism, so I can actually place this at different positions like that. So the original way I had it kind of looked like a little ramp there almost. But if I do turn it, I can use that little arrow to reorient that and flip that. So maybe I'll switch it to this way so the triangular prism is sort of pointing more up now. All right. So that's how we use the fasten mates. The last thing I want you to see is that you also can do what are called offsets. So I'm going to show you just another quick one. I'm going to put a new assembly in place here. And I'm going to insert a couple parts. I'm just going to do a couple things so you can see it. I'm going to put that bridge block back in position here. And I'm going to put this little semicircle arch in position here. And I'm just going to show you one quick thing with that. So let's say I wanted to place this right on top here. Well, again, we could use our fasten mate. I could place it right in the center. And I will match that with the center here. And it looks like it did it, so I'm going to hit the green check. Bring this back in, go to isometric, and it doesn't drag around. Now notice everything actually does move here. That's because I did not fix my first part. So I'm going to fix the bridge block so it's in position. And now on this one, here's what I want you to see. What if I had wanted this semicircular arch to be lined up right on this edge? If I wanted it to be just pushed to this edge and not sitting right in the center, one way to do that is I can click on my mate again and I can check this offset. Offset allows you to just move the part in any of the three directions, the X, Y, or Z direction, and you can specify. So if I wanted this to slide forward just a little bit to match up to this edge, that looks like it's that red X direction. So I can come over here, and if I know all the dimensions on these parts, I might know exactly how far it has to move. I think here I might have to play with it a little bit. I'm going to try 1/2 of an inch first. Just hit enter. Okay, now it looks like it went the reverse direction of what I thought. So that might mean that I should have done -1/2 of an inch. So that will just flip the direction it goes. Okay, now that is too far. So -1/2 of an inch was too far, but it did go in the right direction. So maybe I don't want to go -1/2 of an inch. Maybe I want to try -1/4 of an inch. Okay, now that's not far enough. So maybe I just have to split the difference. -0.375. Okay, that looks good. So now that's exactly lined up. So I can check mark that and say that's good. So that one I showed you an offset where I placed it right in the center first, but then I just moved it off to the side. I will show you I could have accomplished getting it on the side a lot easier. So I'm going to delete that off. So you see I could have just done this. I could have done a fasten mate, and instead of connecting it to the center point, just connect it to that edge right there to begin with. So click that, and then click on this edge right here. That will put those two together. But it is important you know how to do the offsets. So that's a little bit about how you do some mates, and hopefully that will get you going on your assemblies. Good luck with it.